The sky above the city was clear and calm when the first shadow fell. It started as a tiny speck, barely noticeable against the pale blue of the morning, but within moments it grew larger, darker, and more ominous. People paused in the streets, looking up as a fleet of alien ships emerged from the upper atmosphere. They were massive, black and angular, moving in perfect formation, almost like living machines. Their surfaces gleamed with strange energy, reflecting sunlight in sharp, blinding streaks. Panic spread quickly. Sirens screamed across the city as news of the invasion flashed on every screen. 17-year-old Arya stood on the balcony of her small apartment, her heart racing, but her mind was unusually calm. While everyone around her panicked, she felt a strange sense of focus, as though she could see patterns in the chaos. She had always been observant, noticing things others missed. Her intelligence and curiosity were often underestimated, especially because she was just a teenager. But now, as the alien fleet cast its shadow over the city, she felt that those qualities might be the only advantage humanity had. The first explosion came without warning. A scout ship descended rapidly, firing energy beams that tore through the city streets. Buildings shook, glass shattered, and the screams of terrified people filled the air. Emergency broadcasts urged everyone to take shelter. Arya ducked behind the low wall of her balcony, quickly scanning her surroundings. She noticed the paths the alien beams took, how they moved in slightly predictable arcs, how they hesitated when approaching corners or reflective surfaces. Even in destruction, patterns emerged. Arya ran inside her small workshop, a corner of her apartment where she kept tools, electronics, and old drone parts she had scavenged from nearby scrapyards. She didn't just watch the aliens. She had spent years tinkering, creating small inventions designed to observe, record, and manipulate machines. Her hands moved quickly as she assembled a small drone, attaching sensors and makeshift armor. The drone buzzed to life and lifted into the air, ready to explore the streets while she stayed safely above. On the streets below, chaos reigned. Cars abandoned mid-road, streets torn apart, and alien machines moved with frightening precision, seeking anything alive. But even in the panic, Arya noticed moments of opportunity. The aliens seemed to rely on patterns, calculable, predictable, repetitive. Where they expected crowds to scatter in panic, they could be misdirected. Where they assumed humans were disorganized, they underestimated human adaptability. A small smile crossed Arya's face. This was her chance. Using her drone, she guided a fallen crane toward one of the approaching scout ships. The alien didn't anticipate it, and the crane toppled just in time to block the beam of the ship, causing a short circuit. Sparks flew as the alien machine wavered, confused. Below, a few soldiers saw the momentary disruption and seized the opportunity to rescue trapped civilians. Word spread quickly, someone was fighting back, but no one knew it was a teenage girl hiding on a balcony miles away. Arya's mind raced. She had learned from countless hours of games, simulations, and tinkering that the key to winning wasn't brute strength. It was strategy, foresight, and unpredictability. While the military deployed their tanks and jet fighters, she noticed that the aliens reacted slowly to anything unconventional. They expected humans to fight head-on with weapons and armor. But humans had imagination, creativity, and the ability to act in ways aliens could not predict. That was the edge. As the morning wore on, Arya's drone reported another wave of aliens descending on a nearby school. The streets were crowded with children and parents trying to escape. Arya hesitated for only a moment before deciding to act. She quickly rigged a series of smoke bombs she had made for fun experiments, placing them in trash bins along the streets. Then she directed her drone to trigger them remotely. Thick clouds of smoke rose, obscuring the aliens' vision. The machines paused, scanning the area, uncertain how to proceed. Using this moment, human rescuers guided the children to safety, unaware that Arya's quick thinking had saved them. The city's defense forces tried to respond, but they were overwhelmed. Tanks fired, jets swooped, and soldiers charged, yet the alien fleet seemed unstoppable. Still, every time humans acted unpredictably, the aliens faltered for a moment. Arya began documenting every move, noting weaknesses and patterns. She sketched diagrams of alien energy beams, movement arcs, and communication signals. Each observation gave her a new idea for traps, diversions, and misdirection. Even in the chaos, she was building a plan that could make a difference. Hours passed, and the city became a battlefield. Fires burned in several districts, emergency vehicles raced through streets, and civilians huddled in shelters. Arya's small victories went unnoticed by most, but she didn't mind. She didn't need recognition, she needed results. She remembered her father's words, "Brains will always have a place where brawn fails." He had been gone for years, but his lessons stayed with her. Brains, creativity, and quick thinking were humanity's greatest weapons. By afternoon, the alien fleet had expanded its assault. Their ships descended like dark clouds, covering every district. Human forces were pushed back, and cities fell one after another. The government broadcast messages of hope, but the people were terrified. Arya observed it all, noting every strategy the aliens used, every predictable pattern, every hesitation. She realized that the aliens' strength, precision, and overwhelming force was also their weakness. They could not adapt quickly to chaos, to unpredictability, to clever tricks that didn't follow logic they understood. She returned to her workshop, assembling more drones and creating small devices that could emit confusing signals, blind the aliens' sensors, or redirect their energy beams. Each creation was simple, but in combination they could create illusions, obstacles, and traps. She wasn't just fighting the aliens physically, she was fighting their expectations, their assumptions about humans. They believed humans were weak, disorganized, and predictable. Arya intended to prove them wrong. As night fell, the city glowed with fires and emergency lights. The alien ships hovered above, scanning for resistance. Arya launched her fleet of small drones, each carrying devices designed to confuse, distract, and mislead. One drone caused a power surge in a small neighborhood, triggering street lights to flicker in patterns that lured alien scouts into a trap she had prepared using overturned vehicles and debris. Another drone transmitted false signals, making alien machines target empty streets instead of crowded areas. From her vantage point, Arya watched the results. The traps worked. Alien scouts stumbled into obstacles, their circuits overloaded. Human rescuers were able to evacuate civilians while the machines struggled to respond. For the first time, the city's defenders felt a sense of hope. People began murmuring about someone out there fighting back, someone clever. They didn't know it was just a girl using her mind as a weapon. Arya paused for a moment, taking a deep breath. She knew this was only the beginning. The alien fleet was vast, their technology far beyond anything humanity had seen. The military was fighting valiantly, but brute force alone would not win this war. Humans had something stronger: imagination, adaptability, and courage. She smiled faintly, feeling a surge of determination. The aliens thought they understood humans, but they had never faced someone like her. As midnight approached, Arya prepared for another round of interventions. She calculated alien patrol patterns, energy cycles, and communication bursts. Using these observations, she created a map of vulnerabilities, marking areas where she could create diversions, traps, or safe passages. Each small action she took saved lives, slowed the alien advance, and built confidence among the city's defenders. Humanity was not just surviving, they were learning to fight in ways the aliens could not predict. The parting thought that lingered in her mind was simple yet powerful. The war was far from over, but humans had a secret weapon the aliens could not anticipate. It wasn't guns, missiles, or shields. It was creativity, intelligence, and courage. And as long as she could think faster, see patterns they couldn't, and act unpredictably, humans still had a chance. Outside, the alien ships hovered silently, unaware that their calculations were being undermined by a teenage girl they had never noticed. Inside, Arya worked tirelessly, assembling, testing, and observing, knowing that the next day would bring even greater challenges. But she was ready. She would face them not with brute force, but with unseen tactics, the kind that no alien mind could anticipate. Humanity might be small, fragile, and underestimated, but with her, they had a mind capable of outsmarting an entire army. And in the quiet moments before dawn, as fires burned and the city trembled under alien presence, Arya made a promise to herself. She would fight, she would protect, and she would prove that no matter how powerful the enemy, humans had a strength the universe could never calculate. Morning arrived quietly, though the city was far from peaceful. Fires still burned in the distance, smoke rising like dark pillars into the sky. The alien fleet had not retreated. Their ships hovered in formation, scanning for humans, ready to strike again at any moment. But in the midst of destruction, small signs of hope began to emerge. Arya moved through the ruined streets with her drones, observing, analyzing, and planning. Every explosion, every movement, every alien action was a data point, a clue to understanding their patterns. Arya had realized that to defeat the aliens, she needed more than quick thinking. she needed knowledge. She needed to understand the machines, their behaviors, and their weaknesses. She returned to her apartment, her makeshift workshop already buzzing with energy. She carefully disassembled a fallen alien drone she had retrieved the previous night, studying its components. The metal was unlike anything she had seen, dark and lightweight, yet incredibly strong. The circuits were complex but repetitive, and she noticed that the drone's sensors operated in a predictable sweep pattern. While she worked, she kept an eye on the streets below through her balcony view and drone cameras. Soldiers moved cautiously, trying to contain small alien incursions, but the aliens remained relentless. Arya realized that conventional weapons were only partially effective. Tanks could destroy one ship, but hundreds more would arrive. The aliens' strength was overwhelming, but their predictability, their dependence on patterns, was exploitable. That was her key. She activated a small drone, sending it toward a nearby intersection where alien patrols had gathered. The drone emitted tiny pulses that interfered with the alien sensors, creating small blind spots. In those moments, human forces were able to maneuver around the aliens without detection. Civilians evacuated safely, guided by soldiers who had begun to trust the strange, unseen help that seemed to be working in their favor. Arya scribbled notes rapidly. Each observation gave her new ideas. The aliens had communication signals, pulses of light and sound, that connected their ships and drones. She could detect these pulses with a simple receiver she had built, and with some clever modifications, she could send false signals to mislead them. One signal could make a drone think a street was crowded, prompting it to redirect, while another could simulate a phantom threat, drawing alien units away from humans. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, the alien army escalated its attack. Larger ships descended into the city, energy beams slicing through abandoned buildings. Panic spread again, but Arya felt a sense of determination. Humans were beginning to adapt. Civilians were learning to hide, to move quietly, to assist in small ways without knowing why their efforts were effective. Even small actions, covering lights, creating noise in one area, moving quickly through shadows, contributed to the broader defense she was orchestrating. She directed another drone toward a supply convoy the aliens were using to transport materials from the outskirts. Using makeshift EMP pulses, she disabled several smaller transport drones, causing the convoy to stall. The aliens attempted to correct the problem, but Arya's decoys caused confusion in their ranks. Small explosions and collisions blocked their path further, giving human defenders precious time. Soldiers began noticing these advantages. Though they did not know her identity, they realized someone, or something, was working behind the scenes to aid them. By late afternoon, Arya had collected enough data to try something more ambitious. She had studied alien patrol patterns and energy cycles. She knew how often their scanners reset, how their communication pulses worked, and where their weaknesses were most exposed. With careful planning, she could manipulate multiple alien units at once, forcing them into areas where humans could act safely. She deployed a combination of drones and signal-emitting devices, creating the illusion of activity in one part of the city. Alien patrols took the bait, moving toward the decoys. Meanwhile, a second set of drones guided small groups of soldiers and civilians through safe routes, avoiding areas of heavy alien presence. For the first time, humans were not just defending, they were acting strategically. They were using intelligence, not just weapons, and the results were visible. More lives were saved, more areas were secured. As the sun began to set, Arya noticed something unusual. An alien unit moved differently than expected. It paused at unusual intervals, scanning the environment more thoroughly. Her analysis confirmed a worrying possibility. The aliens were beginning to adapt to unpredictability. They were learning, albeit slowly, from the chaos humans were creating. If she wanted to maintain an advantage, she would need to escalate her tactics, combining strategy, psychology, and technology in ways that had never been done before. She decided it was time to take a calculated risk. Arya selected a high-density district under alien control, where civilians were trapped, and devised a plan that used minimal force but maximum deception. She mapped out routes, calculated timing, and coordinated her drones to create multiple false threats. Smoke, noise, and blinking lights distracted alien units, while signal pulses made some think humans were moving in directions they were not. Then she used a small EMP device to disable several alien sensors at once, creating a temporary blind spot. In that brief window, human rescuers moved in, evacuating civilians safely. The aliens attempted to respond, but their sensors were scrambled, their expectations manipulated. Arya watched the entire operation unfold on her monitors, adjusting in real time, anticipating every alien move. It was exhausting work, but the results were undeniable. For the first time, humans had achieved a clear tactical victory without relying on brute force. Word began to spread among the city's defenders about the mysterious force aiding them. Rumors whispered of someone, or something, outsmarting the aliens, creating openings, saving lives. Soldiers speculated, civilians marveled, and hope began to return. None suspected it was a teenage girl hidden in a small apartment, relying solely on intellect, observation, and ingenuity. Night deepened, and Arya continued her work. She studied damaged drones, cataloged alien behaviors, and adjusted her devices for future operations. She knew the aliens would continue to escalate. Their fleet was vast, their technology advanced, but she also knew that their greatest flaw was an inability to predict human creativity. Where machines relied on calculations, humans could improvise. Where aliens depended on patterns, humans could break them. And that unpredictability, that ability to act differently, was her greatest weapon. Her mind wandered briefly to the broader picture. Cities were falling, governments were struggling, and humanity was facing a threat unlike anything it had ever known. Yet even in despair, Arya felt confidence. Humans were resilient, adaptive, and clever. They had imagination, emotion, and determination. The aliens could have superior strength, but they could not anticipate human ingenuity. And if even one person could make a difference, then humanity had hope. Arya paused for a moment to watch the sky. The alien ships hovered, their dark silhouettes cutting across the night, scanning endlessly. But she could see their hesitation, the small gaps in their strategy, the moments when they failed to act because something human disrupted their calculations. Those gaps, though small, were enough for humans to survive, and she intended to widen them to create more opportunities to turn the tide. She thought about the people she was saving, not as numbers or data points, but as individuals with families, dreams, and lives worth protecting. That thought fueled her determination. Every signal she emitted, every drone she deployed, every trap she set was for them. Humanity was fragile, yes, but it was also unyielding, persistent, and brilliant. And as long as she could act, she would ensure that humans would not just survive, they would fight back. Hours later, the city fell quiet again, though the threat had not ended. Alien patrols continued, searching for intruders, but their movements were slower, more cautious. Arya had left a series of small traps and distractions throughout the area, ensuring that humans could move safely while confusing alien units. She knew tomorrow would bring new challenges, bigger attacks, and more danger. But she also knew that she had made a difference today. She had shown that intelligence, creativity, and courage could change the outcome of a battle. Before sleeping, Arya prepared for the next day. She repaired drones, recharged devices, and updated her notes on alien behavior. She ran simulations, imagining different scenarios and planning her responses. Her mind never rested, the war was far from over, but she felt a quiet confidence. She was not alone. Humanity was learning to fight, to adapt, to think differently, and in the vast darkness of the alien invasion, a small light of hope had begun to shine. In the quiet moments before dawn, Arya looked out over the city, seeing both destruction and survival intertwined. The alien army was powerful, relentless, and methodical. But humans had something no machine could replicate: creativity, intuition, and the will to survive. She smiled faintly, knowing that the battle ahead would be difficult, but humanity, guided by clever minds and brave hearts, could prevail. And so, part 2 of the invasion ended, not with a decisive battle, but with a demonstration of something far more important. Humans were not powerless. One girl, armed with knowledge, courage, and cleverness, had begun to teach an alien army that the most dangerous weapon on Earth was not a gun, a missile, or a shield. It was the human mind. The city had grown quieter overnight, but the tension remained. Fires smoldered in abandoned buildings, sirens echoed faintly in the distance, and the alien fleet still loomed in the sky, like a shadow that refused to lift. Humanity had survived another night, but survival was no longer enough. Arya knew the aliens were learning. Every time humans acted unpredictably, the aliens adapted, testing their limits, scanning for weaknesses. She rose early, her mind already calculating possibilities. Every minute of inaction could cost lives. Using her balcony as an observation point, she watched drones and patrol ships sweep the streets below. She noticed a change. The aliens were moving more cautiously, scanning intersections multiple times before proceeding. They had begun to anticipate simple tricks, meaning she would need to escalate her tactics. Arya opened her workshop and laid out her tools. Her drones had become extensions of her mind, each one programmed to perform specific functions. Some acted as decoys, creating phantom threats. Others emitted pulses to disrupt alien sensors. Some recorded data, mapping patterns that she could study to find weaknesses. She had also begun modifying small EMP devices to work over longer distances, careful not to harm humans. Her first task was reconnaissance. She sent a drone toward a heavily monitored sector where an alien unit was securing what appeared to be a command hub. The drone flew quietly, scanning the area, relaying real-time data. Arya noticed something significant. The aliens' communication was strong but centralized. A few pulses controlled multiple units. If she could interfere with those signals, she could create confusion, making them believe there were more humans than there really were. Meanwhile, the humans in the streets were learning to trust the mysterious advantages that seemed to appear in their favor. Soldiers moved in coordinated patterns, guiding civilians to safety, while the drones orchestrated diversions. One drone lured a patrol into an empty building, triggering alarms and traps set by Arya. The patrol's confusion gave human forces the opportunity to rescue trapped workers and families. Word spread among soldiers. Someone clever was aiding them, though no one knew who. By mid-morning, Arya was ready to test a new idea. She realized that humans were unpredictable not only to machines, but also in movement and decision-making. The aliens expected humans to react linearly in predictable ways, but humans could improvise. Arya used this concept to create a series of decoys that mimicked large groups of people moving through the streets. Drones projected holographic silhouettes, lights, and sounds, making the aliens believe they were surrounded by a massive force. The ruse worked beyond expectations. Alien units overreacted, splitting their forces, firing unnecessarily, and blocking each other's paths. A team of soldiers, guided by Arya's drones, moved quickly through an abandoned subway line, rescuing civilians trapped in a crumbling district. The aliens were not destroyed, they were delayed, but the delay was enough to save dozens of lives. Arya noted every reaction, storing it in her mental map of alien behavior. As afternoon approached, the scale of her operations grew. She began coordinating multiple sectors simultaneously, sending drones to different parts of the city, manipulating alien perception, and guiding humans safely through the chaos. The aliens were strong, precise, and technologically superior, but they could not predict the unpredictability of human ingenuity. Every misstep on their part was an opportunity for humans to survive and fight back. Arya paused for a moment, taking a deep breath. The scale of the invasion was enormous. Cities beyond her view were likely experiencing far worse destruction, yet she felt a strange sense of calm. She had always thrived on problem-solving, and this was the ultimate problem. The aliens relied on calculation, logic, and overwhelming force. Humans relied on something they could not calculate: imagination, intuition, and adaptation. And that, she realized, was her greatest weapon. Late in the afternoon, she observed a squad of alien scouts moving unusually fast toward a civilian hospital. Time was critical. She quickly deployed a combination of drones and signal jammers to create distractions. Smoke bombs went off in nearby alleys, blinking lights and noises projected phantom groups, and a small EMP pulse temporarily disabled a scout unit's sensors. The result was chaos among the alien forces. In the confusion, human medics moved patients safely out of the building, guided through hidden routes Arya had mapped. Afterward, she studied the results. Her traps had worked, but the aliens were beginning to adapt to her methods. They started pausing, scanning more carefully, and occasionally retreating to reassess. Arya knew that each success taught them something. If she wanted to maintain her advantage, she would need to escalate further, combining strategy, prediction, and risk in ways that were unprecedented. That evening, as the city settled into an uneasy night, Arya reviewed her notes. She mapped out alien energy patterns, patrol timings, and behavioral tendencies. She realized that the aliens' biggest flaw was their rigidity. Their strength, discipline, coordination, and calculation also made them predictable under certain conditions. She needed to exploit that flaw on a larger scale, not just in small sectors, to have a real impact on the war. Her opportunity came sooner than expected. Late that night, a new wave of alien reinforcements appeared, landing in a sector where several human survivors were trapped. The humans had limited weapons and no way to defend themselves effectively. Arya acted quickly. She coordinated drones, decoys, and her EMP devices to create an intricate web of diversions. One drone emitted holographic figures rushing down streets, while another caused small explosions to simulate human resistance in multiple directions. The alien reinforcements hesitated, unsure which threat was real. In their confusion, Arya guided human survivors through a concealed path, avoiding detection. Every step was calculated. Timing, position, and direction had to be perfect. A single mistake could mean capture or death, yet the humans followed her lead unknowingly, trusting the invisible hand guiding them. By dawn, the entire group had reached a safer district, unharmed and alive. The success strengthened Arya's resolve. Humans were not just surviving, they were learning to act strategically. They had a mind that could think beyond brute force, beyond calculation, and beyond alien expectation. She realized that her role was no longer just assisting small groups. She was becoming a symbol of human potential, a strategist capable of shaping the course of the invasion in ways the aliens could not anticipate. As she rested briefly, her mind was already planning for tomorrow. The alien fleet was vast, but not omnipotent. Every machine had limitations, every pattern a flaw, every predictable behavior an opportunity. She began sketching larger operations, combining multiple tactics simultaneously to create complex traps. Her goal was not to destroy every alien, that would be impossible, but to teach humans how to use intelligence, creativity, and unpredictability as weapons. The next morning, she put her plans into motion. Using drones and signal manipulation, she lured several alien units into a previously evacuated district. There, she had prepared decoys, energy interference devices, and strategic obstacles. The aliens, misled by the false signals, collided with barricades, disrupted each other's communications, and overestimated the human forces present. Soldiers moved through the chaos, taking advantage of the confusion to secure key positions. Civilians were guided safely to shelters, unaware of the invisible network orchestrating their rescue. Arya's work did not go unnoticed. Some human defenders began recognizing patterns, noticing that small victories seemed coordinated in ways that exceeded normal human capability. Rumors spread of a mysterious strategist, someone capable of outthinking the aliens, someone whose intelligence and quick thinking saved lives. These whispers lifted morale, giving soldiers and civilians hope that humans could fight back, even against an overwhelming enemy. By late afternoon, the city had stabilized in small pockets, though the alien fleet still dominated the skies. Arya reviewed her drone's data, noting reactions, errors, and adaptations. She realized the aliens were learning at a slow pace, adjusting their behavior to account for unpredictability. Each success today had given them new information, but she was ready to counter it. Her mind raced ahead, planning ways to remain several steps ahead, using layers of tactics humans could understand and aliens could not. Night fell once more, and the city was filled with both tension and hope. Fires burned in some areas, but shelters and safe zones remained intact. Survivors moved carefully through the streets, guided by signals they didn't fully understand but trusted. The invisible strategy that Arya had created had begun to shape the battle. Humans were not just fighting to survive, they were learning to fight smart, to think creatively, to turn the aliens' own assumptions against them. Arya sat in her workshop, exhausted but focused. Her mind replayed the day's events, analyzing every decision, every movement, and every reaction. She had saved dozens of lives, misled alien forces, and begun teaching humanity how to fight without traditional weapons. Yet she knew the aliens were far from defeated. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, more reinforcements, and potentially far larger battles. She needed to continue evolving her tactics, finding ways to remain unpredictable, creative, and effective. The thought that remained strongest in her mind was simple but powerful. Humans were underestimated because they could think differently. Strength and technology were not the only measures of power. Creativity, adaptability, and courage could turn the tide of war. And as long as she could think faster, plan smarter, and act more cleverly than the enemy, humanity had a chance, not just to survive, but to win. And in that quiet night, as alien lights blinked in the distance and the city slept in uneasy calm, Arya smiled faintly. She was no longer just a teenager in a city under siege. She was a strategist, a protector, and a symbol of what humans could accomplish when intelligence, courage, and determination were put to work. The battle was far from over, but for the first time, hope burned as brightly as the fires in the city below. The morning sky was heavy with dark clouds, though the real storm hovered above the city in the form of the alien fleet. This time it was different. Hundreds of ships descended, larger and more heavily armed than any Arya had observed before. The aliens had learned from previous encounters. They were cautious, precise, and determined. Their presence was overwhelming, a moving wall of black metal and energy that stretched as far as the eye could see. The city trembled under their weight. Arya had anticipated escalation. She moved quickly, her mind racing with calculations and possibilities. Her network of drones was deployed across multiple districts, each with a specific purpose: observation, distraction, communication, and interference. Every human group in the city had been mapped, and every potential alien route had been analyzed. Her plan was no longer a small-scale defense. It was a city-wide strategy, combining intelligence, timing, and unpredictability in ways the aliens could not anticipate. The first wave hit the eastern district, where human survivors were concentrated in temporary shelters. Alien energy beams tore through streets, demolishing walls and sending debris flying. Civilians screamed, but Arya was ready. Her drones had already deployed holographic decoys, creating the illusion of human activity in empty streets. Alien patrols hesitated, scanning and firing at phantom threats. A series of small EMP pulses disabled several scout units for brief moments, allowing humans to move safely. Arya coordinated the operations like a conductor of a symphony. She watched monitors, issuing instructions through tiny signals the drones could interpret. Each movement was precise, calculated, and timed to the second. Streets were cleared, civilians guided, and alien units misdirected into safe zones where obstacles slowed them down. Though the aliens were stronger and more numerous, they were beginning to fall into patterns Arya could manipulate. She noticed a large squad of alien walkers moving toward a crowded market. The humans trapped there had no weapons capable of stopping them. Arya's mind raced. She devised a plan using everything she had: drones, decoys, EMP pulses, and the natural environment. Smoke machines obscured vision, holographic projections suggested human reinforcements, and debris created narrow pathways that slowed the alien advance. The aliens, confused and cautious, became trapped in their own calculations. Human rescuers moved in, evacuating civilians while alien units struggled to adapt. The city's defenders began to notice the pattern. Soldiers whispered to each other about the strange phenomenon aiding them. Civilians murmured tales of a clever force working unseen, guiding them to safety. Arya's influence was spreading, not just physically but psychologically. Hope was returning. For the first time since the invasion began, humans felt they were not powerless. They were learning that brains, courage, and creativity could compete with technology and brute strength. Midday brought a new challenge. A massive alien ship descended directly above the central district, its size dwarfing the tallest buildings. Energy beams lashed out, targeting anything that moved. The human military fired relentlessly, but conventional weapons were barely scratching the surface. Arya's calculations were precise. She could not defeat the ship directly, but she could manipulate it indirectly. She deployed multiple drones to create phantom signals, making the ship perceive a heavily defended area elsewhere. Simultaneously, EMP pulses disrupted its targeting sensors intermittently. The alien ship hesitated, recalculating, giving humans precious time to evacuate key zones. While coordinating these defenses, Arya observed the aliens' behavior. She noticed hesitation, a flaw in their precision. They were powerful but rigid. Every time humans acted unpredictably, their responses slowed. This was her advantage. She began creating increasingly complex traps, combining multiple tactics simultaneously. Streets became mazes of false signals, hidden obstacles, and confusing movements. Alien patrols entered these zones, only to collide, miscommunicate, and become disoriented. The more rigid and structured the alien army became, the more vulnerable they were to her tactics. As the day progressed, Arya expanded her operations to coordinate human actions directly. Civilians were guided subtly, moving in ways that supported the broader strategy. Soldiers began following paths she had marked, setting up barricades and ambushes without understanding why. Drones relayed real-time data, constantly adjusting plans as aliens reacted. The city itself became a dynamic battlefield where every movement mattered and every decision could influence the outcome. Late afternoon brought the alien commander personally into the city. A massive ship descended, unlike any seen before, bristling with weapons and accompanied by elite troops. Its presence was intimidating, calculated, and meant to strike fear. The humans hesitated, unsure how to respond. Arya's heart pounded, but she remained focused. This was the moment she had anticipated. The commander was highly intelligent but predictable in his overconfidence. He assumed brute force would dominate and that human ingenuity would be limited. He had not faced someone like her. Arya deployed her full network of drones and decoys. Signals, projections, and obstacles created a citywide illusion, suggesting humans were stronger and more organized than they really were. The alien commander moved carefully, attempting to probe and scan, but Arya anticipated each move. She manipulated street lighting, noise, and even natural shadows to conceal human activity and exaggerate phantom threats. Alien units moved in patterns that made them vulnerable to indirect manipulation. Every decision the commander made was subtly countered, making him believe humans were more capable than they appeared. Meanwhile, civilians and soldiers were guided safely through hidden paths, evacuating key zones while alien forces became trapped in confusion. A small team of soldiers ambushed isolated alien patrols that had been misdirected, capturing vital equipment and intelligence. Arya's tactics were working on a scale larger than ever before. She realized that this was the turning point. Humanity could fight not by matching alien strength, but by exploiting weakness, rigidity, and predictability. Night fell, but the battle did not end. Arya continued monitoring the city, adjusting drones and signals in real time. She noticed the alien commander attempting a direct assault on a critical junction. This was her chance. Using synchronized decoys, EMP pulses, and precise timing, she created a trap that lured the commander's elite units into narrow streets lined with debris and obstacles. The alien units struggled, miscalculating distances and colliding with each other. For the first time, elite forces were at a disadvantage against human strategy. Arya felt a surge of determination. Humanity was proving that intelligence, courage, and adaptability could match raw power. The citizens she guided were unaware of her role, but each life saved, each successful maneuver reinforced the lesson. Humans could outthink the enemy. The aliens may have had superior technology, but humans had creativity, intuition, and unpredictability, qualities the enemy could not calculate. By midnight, the city had stabilized in several key districts. Fires were contained, civilians were in safe zones, and alien forces were disrupted. The alien commander, frustrated and unable to adapt to the complex network of unseen tactics, retreated to regroup. Arya knew this was temporary. The aliens would return stronger and smarter. But the victory was important. Humanity had endured, adapted, and won small but critical battles. Arya took a moment to review her work. Streets had been mapped, drones repositioned, and civilians secured. She analyzed alien behavior, noting every response and adaptation. Each observation would help refine future strategies. She realized that tomorrow would be even more challenging. The alien fleet was vast, and their reinforcements would arrive in greater numbers. But humans had learned something vital. They were not powerless, and clever thinking could shape the battlefield in ways brute force could not. She looked out over the city, the glow of fires and lights reflecting her resolve. The alien army was strong, organized, and relentless, but humanity had begun to fight differently. They were learning, adapting, and surviving. Arya knew that the upcoming confrontation with the alien commander would test every tactic, every plan, and every ounce of courage she had cultivated. But she was ready. In the quiet of the night, she felt a surge of hope. The people of the city, though unaware, were part of a living strategy, moving, surviving, and resisting. The aliens had underestimated humanity's greatest strength, the ability to think, to create, and to act unpredictably. And as long as Arya and those like her continued to guide them, humans had a chance not just to survive, but to prevail. And in that calm before the storm of the next day, Arya made a promise. She would continue to fight with every bit of intelligence and creativity she possessed. She would turn the city itself into a weapon of human ingenuity, proving that even in the face of overwhelming power, the human mind could not be defeated. The alien army had strength and technology, but humans had something far greater, the ability to think differently, to adapt, and to surprise. And that ability, she knew, would determine the fate of the world. Dawn broke over the city, but it was not peaceful. The alien fleet had returned in full force, larger and more menacing than ever before. Their ships blocked the sun, casting long shadows over the streets below. Energy beams lanced the skyline, striking buildings, debris, and empty streets alike. The city trembled, and humans huddled in shelters and safe zones, bracing for what seemed inevitable. The alien commander, a towering figure in both strategy and technology, descended in a massive ship that hovered above the central district. He radiated authority, precision, and menace. Arya observed from her high vantage point, drones whirring around her. Her eyes scanned every movement, every pulse of energy, every alien patrol pattern. The commander had learned from previous encounters. He was cautious, calculating, and ruthless. He had adapted to her tactics, and yet she had anticipated this adaptation. Today would be the final test, not just of her skills, but of humanity's ingenuity, courage, and resilience. The streets were mapped, civilians were guided to safe zones, and drones were positioned in every key location. Arya's plan relied on timing, misdirection, and the ability to make the alien commander believe he was controlling the battlefield while in reality, he was being manipulated. Every drone, every hologram, every EMP pulse, and every obstacle had a role to play. Humanity's survival depended not on weapons, but on cleverness and strategy. The alien commander moved first, sending elite units into the city to probe human defenses. Energy beams cut through empty streets, but Arya's diversions worked perfectly. Holographic decoys created the illusion of massive human forces, and drones emitted signals that scrambled alien sensors intermittently. Alien units miscalculated, colliding with obstacles and each other. Civilians and soldiers moved through hidden paths, guided by the invisible network Arya had created. Arya knew that the commander would eventually notice the deception. He was intelligent, observant, and relentless. She had anticipated this, so she began preparing the final phase of her plan. It was risky. It required precise timing, coordination, and the courage to act under immense pressure. She deployed drones to create multiple layers of false threats, while EMP devices temporarily blinded sections of alien patrols. Energy pulses misdirected communication signals, making it difficult for alien units to coordinate. The city itself became a complex maze, designed to trap, confuse, and exhaust the enemy. The commander realized something was wrong. His elite units were faltering, moving unpredictably, and his perception of human strength was distorted. He descended personally into the central district, emerging in a sleek, armored exosuit that radiated power. His eyes scanned the city, searching for the source of disruption. He had calculated everything, but humans had always done the unexpected. Arya smiled faintly. The final confrontation had begun. She guided drones to block the commander's line of sight and misdirect his energy pulses. At the same time, she triggered sequences that manipulated shadows, light, and sound, making the environment itself appear to resist him. The commander moved cautiously, frustrated by the illusions and misdirection. Each of his actions was anticipated, countered, and used against him. He fired energy blasts into empty streets, but they struck debris or activated false sensors. Civilians and soldiers remained safe, moving invisibly under the cover of her strategy. Arya knew that a direct confrontation would come. She could not avoid it, nor did she want to. Her strength lay not in weapons, but in thinking differently, exploiting patterns, and using creativity to outmaneuver the enemy. She focused on the commander's behavior, predicting his responses, his timing, and his reliance on logic and brute force. He assumed humans were reactive, not proactive, predictable rather than adaptable. That assumption was his greatest weakness. The commander advanced toward the city's heart, his elite units covering every approach. Arya triggered the final layer of her plan. Drones projected holograms of human soldiers in multiple locations, while small EMP bursts disabled sections of alien sensors intermittently. Streets and buildings were rigged with obstacles, misdirecting patrols and isolating elite units. The commander, confident in his superiority, moved into the trap. Each step he took was anticipated, each action countered, and each decision forced him deeper into confusion. Arya guided her drones to converge around the commander, not to attack directly, but to manipulate perception. Holographic duplicates of civilians and soldiers created phantom threats on all sides. EMP pulses disrupted his targeting systems momentarily, while subtle movements of debris and light forced him to recalculate constantly. For the first time, the commander faced uncertainty, a concept he had never fully understood. His elite units were trapped, disoriented, and unable to coordinate effectively. The turning point came when Arya noticed a narrow alley leading directly beneath a partially destroyed building. She calculated that if she could lure the commander there, she could exploit both his overconfidence and rigidity. Drones projected phantom human forces leading him toward the path. The commander, believing he had found a weakness in human defenses, advanced without caution. At the critical moment, Arya triggered the final sequence. Debris from the building shifted, creating obstacles that the commander could not anticipate. His sensors faltered under EMP interference, and phantom signals made him believe more human forces were attacking from multiple directions. Isolated and confused, his elite units stumbled and collided while the commander struggled to maintain control. For the first time, he was reacting rather than acting. Arya watched intently, adjusting holograms, energy pulses, and obstacles in real time. Every move was precise. Every action counted. The alien commander, once the embodiment of fear and precision, now faltered under the weight of unpredictability. He fired energy blasts blindly, trying to regain control, but the city itself worked against him. Humans moved safely, guided invisibly by Arya's strategy, while alien units became trapped in chaos of their own making. The commander realized his overconfidence had been exploited. He attempted a direct retreat, but found the exits blocked by both real obstacles and phantom forces. Arya's drones converged, not to attack physically, but to maintain pressure and prevent escape. Every recalculation he made was anticipated. Every attempt to adapt was countered. Humans were winning not by matching his strength, but by thinking differently, by acting creatively, and by exploiting unpredictability. Finally, with a combination of patience, timing, and strategy, the commander was forced to withdraw. His elite units were scattered, confused, and ineffective. The rest of the alien fleet, seeing their commander falter, began to retreat. Energy beams ceased, and the skies slowly cleared as alien ships withdrew to regroup. Humanity had survived the ultimate assault, not through brute force, but through intelligence, creativity, and courage. Arya exhaled, exhausted but victorious. She had anticipated, calculated, and orchestrated every move. She had used the city itself as a weapon, the drones as extensions of her mind, and human adaptability as the ultimate advantage. The alien commander had underestimated humanity, assuming technology and power alone would guarantee victory. He had been wrong. The city slowly emerged from the chaos. Civilians stepped into the streets, blinking at the destruction and the sudden calm. Soldiers regrouped, checking for survivors and assessing damage. There was relief but also awe. Whispers spread of a mysterious strategist, someone who had outsmarted an alien army. None knew it was a 17-year-old girl whose intelligence, courage, and creativity had turned the tide. Arya surveyed the city, drones returning to her workshop. She allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had survived a force far stronger and more advanced than anything seen before. They had not only survived, they had adapted, learned, and fought smart. She knew the aliens would return, stronger and more cautious, but humanity had discovered its greatest weapon, the ability to think differently, to act unpredictably, and to combine courage with intelligence. As night fell, the city was quiet for the first time in days. Fires smoldered but were controlled. Civilians moved freely, beginning to rebuild and recover. Soldiers patrolled cautiously, aware of the alien threat, but confident in humanity's resilience. Arya returned to her workshop, reviewing data, repairing drones, and planning for the future. The battle was over, but the war for humanity's survival was ongoing. She knew that intelligence and creativity would remain humanity's greatest tools in the challenges to come. She reflected on the day's events. Humans had faced a technologically superior and ruthless enemy, yet they had prevailed, not through weapons or brute force, but through cleverness, strategy, and courage. Each life saved, each alien misdirected, and each obstacle placed had contributed to a victory born of intelligence and adaptation. Humanity had proven its value not just in strength, but in mind, spirit, and creativity. Arya thought about the people she had saved. She thought about soldiers who had learned to trust the invisible guidance, about civilians who had moved safely through danger without realizing it, and about the alien commander, who had faced defeat not through combat, but through outthinking. Humanity had shown that it was not powerless, that brains and courage could challenge even the most advanced forces in the universe. As she looked to the stars, the horizon still held the dark silhouettes of retreating alien ships. They would return, no doubt, but humanity would be ready. Humans had discovered their edge: unpredictability, creativity, and intelligence. And at the heart of it all, a single human mind, hers, had demonstrated that even the smallest, underestimated individuals could make a difference against impossible odds. Arya smiled, quietly proud but humble. The city had survived, and humanity had triumphed in its own way. Brute force had not won the day. Technology alone had not prevailed. What had won was thought, courage, and the refusal to be powerless. Humans had shown the universe that even in the face of overwhelming odds, creativity, adaptability, and intelligence could turn despair into victory. And so, as the stars returned to the sky and the city slowly healed, Arya knew that humanity's greatest battles would always be won not by power, but by thinking differently. The aliens might return, but humans had discovered something they could never replicate: the human mind, unpredictable, creative, and courageous. For today, humanity had survived. And that survival, guided by unseen tactics, cleverness, and unyielding spirit, was a victory that would be remembered, not just for the lives saved, but for what it proved about the power of the human mind.